It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello, everybody. I'm Ralph Ventry, ready to bring you the whole 9 yards on week 13 of Northeast Conference football. So we started back in August. Now it's November, the final week of the regular season staring right at us. Yes, week 13. 6 of the 7 NEC teams will be in action. Sacred Heart has a bye as the Pioneers will get some extra rest prior to the FCS playoffs. And yes, Sacred Heart has clinched the NEC's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs, but everything still isn't settled. Bryant and Wagner will face one another in week 13. The winner of that game will get a share of the Northeast Conference title alongside Sacred Heart. We'll dive into that matchup and the rest of our Week 13 card in the No Huddle preview. First up, it's the Steel City Showdown, which will double as the NEC football game of the week on ESPN3. Robert Morris will make the short trip to downtown Pittsburgh, where they will meet Duquesne on Rooney Field. This will be the 7th meeting between the two as Northeast Conference members. Since Duquesne joined the league in 2008, the series is tied at 3-3. In addition to the NEC series lead, 2 receiving records will be at stake Saturday on Rooney Field. First, Duquesne's Chris King. He has 14 touchdown catches this season. That number is tied for 2nd in the football championship subdivision, and it's 2 shy of the all-time NEC single-season record, which was set by former Duke Connor Dixon. He had 16 touchdown grabs in 2011. For Robert Morris, Dwayne Mitchell took sole possession of a program record earlier this month. The senior receiver will look to close out his career by making at least 1 reception for the 33rd consecutive game and extending his Robert Morris program record in the process. It'll surely be an emotional day in Pittsburgh. In addition to it being a rivalry game in a football-crazed city, Saturday will be the last chance for a number of seniors to play college football. And you can watch it all beginning at 12 noon live on ESPN3 and the Watch ESPN app. Next, we move a few miles east out Route 22 to Loretto, Pennsylvania. This will be the site of St. Francis against Central Connecticut. It'll be the regular season finale for both teams. For Central, they'll be looking to close out Pete Rossamondo's first year on the job with an NEC victory. Meanwhile, St. Francis has its sights set on making program history. The Red Flash won 5 games in 2012. They won another 5 games in 2013. Heading into this season's finale, they're 5-5. A win would make them 6-5, giving them the program's single-season wins record since the Red Flash elevated to the Division I FCS level in 1992. The other key storyline is that the NEC's 2 Walter Payton Award finalists will play on the same field come Saturday. Earlier this week, St. Francis U Jr. Kahari Dixon and Central Connecticut senior Rob Holloman were named finalists for the most prestigious individual honor given to an FCS student-athlete. In his first season as a full-time starter, Dixon has been sensational. He opened the season with a 244-yard rushing performance at nationally ranked Fordham on August 30th, and he's led Division I FCS in rushing ever since. He has 1,650 rush yards. That's 7th all-time on the NEC's single-season list. With 20 yards on Saturday, he will take over sole possession of 6th place in the NEC single-season record book. As for Holloman, the CCSU senior eclipsed the 1,000-yard rushing mark last week against Howard in the NAACP Harmony Classic. This makes Holloman the first ever Blue Devil to string together 3 consecutive 1,000-yard campaigns. He is 75 yards shy of breaking into the top 10 on the NEC's all-time career rushing leaderboard. So you can watch 2 of the best in the FCS Saturday on NEC Front Row. Dixon, Holloman, St. Francis, and Central Connecticut. And finally, we move on to the game that we teased you with at the top of the show. It's Wagner at Bryant, and it's a championship game of sorts. Bryant head coach Marty Fine explains why this particular contest is so incredibly important to his program.
We're 8-2, we're 4-1 in our league, and we have one more league game. If we win this game, we go to 5-1 in the league. We tie Sacred Heart for league championship. They get the automatic bid because they beat us head-to-head, but we are Division I NEC champions just a couple of years into this Division I experience. So that's a great opportunity for our kids. Second, we've never won 9 football games in a year. Even in the great Division II teams, we play up a couple of times and we end up with 8 wins. So a chance to win 9 games is a terrific thing.
As for Wagner, they will be playing for their 2nd NEC title in the last 3 years. If you remember back to 2012, the Seahawks won the conference crown and then went on to beat Colgate in the FCS playoffs. A win on Saturday won't get the Seahawks into the playoffs this year, but it will send their seniors out with a championship ring. As for Bryant's playoff chances, a win over Wagner would make the Bulldogs a legitimate contender for an at-large berth. There'll be 13 at-large teams selected into the 2014 championship field, and at 9-2, Marty Fine thinks his Bulldogs would be in position to snatch one of those bids.
People want to talk about these playoffs, and that's great. At least we're talking about them. The reality of the situation is this. For the last couple of years, every 1AA football team that won 9 games got in the national playoffs. If we win this weekend, you know how many wins we have? I know you're not an out-counting guy. I know you're not a math guy. I know you didn't get to go to Bryant, but I want you to try hard here. We're 8-2 now. We got a game this weekend. If we win this weekend, what's the record?
9-2.
I told you you're smarter than you look. And so at 9-2, we would be one of the handful of teams in the country with 9 wins. And then there's a committee of these, genius administrators, and they'll get together and they'll have meetings, and they'll decide on Sunday whether our 9-2 is good enough to get in. Now, if we don't win, I don't think you have any chance at all. But if you get to 9-2, and you won 2 CAA games, and you played as well as we did, and you beat Bucknell, who's having a terrific year, then you have to think you're in the consideration.
As for the actual game on the field, this one will feature 2 of the premier defenses in Division I FCS. Just listen to what Sacred Heart wide receiver Tyler Doobie had to say about Bryant's defense after the Week 12 matchup.
They had a great defense. I'm not going to lie. Their defensive line was probably one of the best in the conference. They played well. They played us well.
When it comes to points allowed, Bryant is surrendering the 5th fewest points in the nation. As for total defense, that's yardage allowed per game, Bryant ranks 10th overall in FCS. As for Wagner, Wagner's 5th in the total defense rankings and 9th in terms of scoring defense. 2 defensive powerhouses go at it on Front Row. Which defense will win the day? Better yet, which team will win a championship? And here it is, the final Twitter timeout of the 2014 regular season. Now, I've spent the past 12 weeks looking at all of your tweets, so now you're going to have to look at one of mine. That's right, I hope you already follow NEC Ralph on Twitter, but if you don't, what are you waiting for? Anyway, earlier in the week, I had this to say. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of the way we do things here in the football championship subdivision. You've heard all this talk this year about a college football playoff, but the real college football playoffs are right here in FCS. 24 teams will go at it over a month and a half's time for one single national champion to be crowned. 11 conferences get automatic bids into this big dance, while there'll be 13 at-large berths, as I mentioned earlier in the show. 8 national seeds will be through to the second round, while the other 16 teams in the bracket will play first-round matchups on the weekend after Thanksgiving. You'll find out who will make the cut on Sunday, November 23rd. It's the FCS Selection Show live on ESPNU, an hour-long program that begins at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We know Sacred Heart will be in that bracket. Let's see if any other NEC teams join the Pioneers. And now it's time for some X's and O's. If you've been watching the show throughout the season, you know exactly what we're going to do here. It's time to feature one player on the offensive side of the ball and then shine the spotlight over to the defensive side. Both players we'll take a look at today will square off in the Week 13 championship game between Wagner and Bryant. Starting on offense with the visiting Seahawks, let's take a look at senior center David Fredrickson. He's an Iron Man if there ever was one here in Northeast Conference football. Fredrickson, a 6'2", 290-pounder, a Staten Island native, by the way, is set to make his 46th consecutive start at center for the Seahawks. If that doesn't impress you, well, it definitely impresses Wagner head coach Walt Hamline. Hamline called his senior center a focal point of the offense. Hamline went on saying that Fredrickson makes all of our line calls and he's just a hard-nosed guy who goes all out on every snap. So hats off to Wagner's Iron Man, David Fredrickson. Enjoy start number 46. Now over to the defensive side. Well, we've featured a number of Bryant players in this segment throughout the season. We took a look at the defensive line, Jeff Kovitz. We took a look at the linebacking core with Sam Sammons. Now it's time to give some love to that Bryant Bulldogs defensive backfield. The spotlight goes to senior defensive back Michael Johnson. Bryant's cover corner has broken up 11 passes thus far during his senior season. That's more than one pass breakup per game. He has 24 solo tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and an INT. Most of all, he brings veteran leadership to that rather stingy defense. So there you have it, whether it's a cornerback, Michael Johnson, or a center in David Fredrickson, these two teams who will square off in Week 13, Wagner and Bryant, they are full of senior leadership. That could be one of the reasons why they're playing for a championship. Well, folks, in show business, that's what we call a wrap. It's been a great season. I've enjoyed myself all the way throughout. I hope you have done the same. The good news is we have one more Saturday left. So let's go out and enjoy Week 13 on the gridiron. For NEC Front Row, I'm Ralph Ventry. This was your whole 9 yards.